Post. Got it. Okay, let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. If I could have everyone stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic
which stands
one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Justice for all.
All right. Is there a motion to approve the present agenda?
So moved.
Peter? Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Sherry. All those in favor of approving the present agenda, say aye. Mr. Farsky?
Aye.
Let me get to my list here. Mr. Grandinetti?
Aye.
Mrs. Gibson?
Aye.
Mr. Hersey?
Aye.
Mr. Peter?
Aye.
My vote is aye, and Mrs. Uniston.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion is passed. All right, the first report up for the night is the professional development plan. Mr. Chevier?
All right. So this evening, we would like to share our professional development plan. It's an annual requirement for us to present to the board the professional development plan. You on board docs, you'll have seen two attachments. We have a 3-year professional development plan, and we had a slide deck to kind of go through that presentation. So we're not going to go through the document page by page, but we'll talk about what's included in the document and certainly talk to the board a little bit about the year in review, what we did for the 1920 school year, and then we'll talk a little bit about the upcoming school year and what the plan is for the current school year. So Mr. Bennett and I are going to kind of tag team this presentation. So I'm going to turn it over to Mike. He's going to get us started tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Chevier. As Jason alluded to, the document is a 3-year document in which we kind of set out our plan for 3 years. Each year we go back and revisit it. Part of this process that we go through is we take a look at what the needs are internally from teacher and teaching assistant perspective. We take a look at some of some data to reflect where our teaching and assistance needs to come from. Start to look at our development of professional development goals based on those needs, usually whether they're internal or, as you'll see in a couple of later slides, we're required through ESSA to work on different things. It'll help us to drive what we do for the year. Then each year we like to go back, take a look at how we did. What were some of the things that we did well? What are some of the things that we can improve upon? Professional development planning committee is made up of teachers, administrators, teaching assistants. We added teaching assistants a few years back, really kind of align ourselves with what their certification requires, and it requires them to have a certain amount of professional development. So we added them to our program. Then within the document itself, district goals is Appendix A. Appendix B is our CTLE requirements. For our teachers, there's a certain amount of CTLE credits they need to receive. And part of that is we just can't let any professional development count as CTLE hours. They have to be approved by the district or be a vendor that is approved to provide those CTLE hours. So we include those in the document so the board, our community understand where the professional development is coming from. Then finally, our mentoring plan. The state requires us to have a new teacher mentoring program. This past year was chaired by Janice Balog, and it really takes a long, year-long look at new teachers, pairing them up with our veteran teachers who have applied and have been accepted to be a mentor. It kind of works them through the ins and outs of not only becoming a new teacher, but also with the culture and climate here in Skoda. So that's our veteran plan. So this year, the process, beginning of the year, we set up first meet as a committee matrix that kind of maps out the year in regards to meeting dates, things like that. This year, obviously, we were cut short due to COVID, and we did have an additional meeting in May once things started to settle a little bit to talk about some of those needs and some of the things that we still have crept into our need realm and discuss some of that stuff. Also gives us the time to do a self-evaluation, again, based on what we're doing well, and really what we need to look forward to next year. And then obviously part of the process of what we do is implementing some of the professional development conversation that we had into our professional development days. Get some feedback, some survey feedback on how different professional development days went. And then keep revising as the need changes from year to year. We got to go back and kind of revise where we're at. So some of the notable changes this year, obviously, is the COVID-19 and that interruption. We'll talk about that a little bit more in regards to where our professional development needs to go. I mentioned the ESSA updates as required. We have not only New York State mandated mental health requirements, but ESSA has made it part of their Title IV grant. We need to incorporate trainings in and around mental health, around homelessness, and we need to make sure that we're using some of the funds that we're getting from the federal government to provide some of that professional development. And again, taking a look at our district goals from year to year, where does our professional development lie in regards in relationship to our professional development, making sure that there is an alignment there. And then formatting, like I said, setting out our course for the year, and then anything that we need to do internally, kind of, Mr. Chevier will talk a little bit later about LMS and some of the different things that we're trying to update moving forward. So we take a look at all that stuff at the beginning of the year. So some of the reflections from the committee, things that we did this year in our first couple of professional development days, the mental health piece being a big part, both through New York State and through the federal title grants, making sure that we're doing some of the work there. We have invested a large amount of money in professional development around mental health the last few years. The elementary school, the collaborative classroom, and the community, in the school community group, that the program that we're using down there, as well as at the high school this past year, we partnered with Mahaney's and went through with our 10th grade class and faculty and staff a level of mental health training that we got through a grant. So that was a big part of our year at the beginning of the year. One of the things that we reflected upon a lot is we had great success with the Wellness Day for students last year. So this past year, we wanted to not only do one for the students once again, but to do one for our faculty and staff. So a lot of time and conversation went into the planning of that day. Unfortunately, that day happened to fall upon March 13th, which was right before we went out. And we had to last minute scrap some of those plans to really refocus that day on getting our faculty ready to go into a remote environment. A lot of the notes and a lot of the planning that we did for that day, we'll continue to take a look at, for the future moving forward. Had a great input on that. The elementary school reading, writing workshops that we instituted this year at every grade level, but I believe it was first and second grade. lot of training with Gene Tribuzzi from the Teachers College came in, and it's a big part of the beginning of this year, throughout the year, coming back, doing professional development in person. When we moved to remote, we were able to do some of that remotely this spring or this summer. We were fortunate enough to get some time in with Gene as we bring on our first and second grade teachers as we move through that training. So that went well received by our faculty, and we were able to get some staff days in for teaching assistants to kind of get some hands-on with some of that. One thing that we went back to this year too was really relying on our own people to lead a lot of our training. We've got some incredibly talented faculty here in Skodak who have grown their craft in such a way that they've been asked to present not only locally, regionally, state level, and some even at the national level. So using our folks to really help develop best practice in a lot of different areas. Our teachers respond very well, stepping up to lead those professional development opportunities, but teachers also like learning from people down the hallway. So that's worked out very well. We've gone back to developing some of our own teacher voice and what our needs are, and letting some teachers propose some different activities for professional development around days. Our committee took some time to review some of those proposals as we moved into professional development, and really got some positive feedback by our faculty and staff who attended some of the trainings on a conference day, and really, again, some good stuff in what we're doing. And then an interest survey, getting our group takes a look at the feedback we get based on a Google form out to gauge people's experience in that teacher-led professional development. And you really use that to kind of tweak and hone opportunities moving forward. So that was the positive takeaways from this year. Some of the things that we take a look at needs, and we'll talk more about this as we move into next year. A lot from our May meeting where we really kind of had gotten 2 months into a remote training or a remote learning platform and tech integration. I think we do a lot of things well, but we have a lot of things going on. So trying to intertwine some of what's being done at different levels into what our technology capabilities are. So taking a look at that. Remote instruction, obviously, we asked our faculty to jump into remote instruction pretty quickly, and different learning curve for folks. And I think that was something that we saw as a need moving forward, is more understanding of what a remote instruction looks like. Alignment across the district, it's something that we've heard a lot from some of our surveys, even prior to some of those surveys going out. One of the things we heard a lot from folks was top to bottom, how can we align some of what we're doing so it's a little easier to manage, both from a tech integration to curriculum, those types of things. Continued mental health professional development. Like I said, we've come a long way in what we've been able to offer and where our faculty and staff are with recognizing and understanding the importance of mental health across curriculum in education in general. We know that we're going to see more of need to better understand what our students are coming back from COVID. And we've actually been able to put together an internal district-wide task force that met a couple of times over the summer to kind of take a look at some of those needs as we are ready to return in the fall to kids back at school, what adult needs are, what student needs are, and continue to take a look at some of those things. Curriculum changes, like I said, vertical alignment implementation. We know that the New York State next generation standards have they're kind of put on hold a little bit. What we need to do is take a look at some of those basic concepts and some key ideas with the current standards, and understand where we need to be teaching moving forward. And like I said, we'll continue to work on at CES with a reading writing workshop. Some of the work that's been done there with Gene Tribuzzi and Teachers College. So we're really looking forward to that as we move forward. So next steps. Obviously the planning during the COVID-19 pandemic became an important part of our spring, and understanding things look different. Not only what do we need to do in regards to professional development, but how do we run professional development? We've gotten pretty used to Google Meets. We've gotten used to WebEx. Some's gotten used to Zoom. So trying to lay out professional development through this time. Fortunately, with Questar 3, they jumped right into a lot of training in and around remote learning and instruction, curriculum-based, technology-based instruction. So we've had a lot of teachers who took advantage of that over the summer with in-service. A lot of teaching assistants have taken advantage of that over the spring and summer. Learn more about what we can be doing differently moving forward. The other piece that we started to take a look at was the 6 hours of professional development. As the board is aware, we moved from removed one full day from our calendar in regards to professional development. And the idea was to chunk out 3 weeks of time in the between seasons in the fall and between the winter and the spring to use some of that time for after school. What was that development going to look like? Obviously, that's changed a little bit. I believe Mr. Chevier will talk a little bit about where we're at with that. Communication, big piece of the professional development. Not only internally, one of the things that we understand and we recognize is the communication with our students and our families on some of the work that's being done. How does remote instruction look? We've played around a little bit with the idea of giving some professional development to families in regards to how to use some of the new things that we're looking at embracing here in the next coming weeks. Continued mental health, as I mentioned, continues to be at the forefront of some of the conversation and some of the professional development work we can look at. And obviously remote instruction continues to be an area that we need to learn more on. So what I'll ask Mr. Chevier to do from here is kind of moving forward, what is the focus for this upcoming school year? I think you're on mute there, Mr. Chevier.
Thanks for the assist there. I appreciate that. Sorry about that. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate the conversation around last year's professional development and kind of landing us where we are now. So as we look ahead to the upcoming school year, obviously health and safety is at the forefront of all that we are doing. And so there is, when you review our reopening plan, there's a lot of training elements that we are going to be required to train all of our employees and our students when they come back into school. So health and safety will be prominent. That is something we'll have to continue to educate everyone on, even though we do it at the beginning of the year during a conference day. We will need to have ongoing training and reminders to make sure that everybody understands how to properly use PPE, understand socially what it means to be socially distant, how we operate and through protocols, what are some of the procedures we do. Those are going to be important topics to continue to remind everybody throughout the course of the year. Through the survey results, as you know, we surveyed students, parents, faculty, and staff at the end of the year. As Mike has mentioned, remote instruction, there were a lot of questions around remote instruction and suggestions and feedback on how we potentially could improve in that setting. And so What I think is important to remember is we flipped the switch pretty quick. We went from in-person to remote instruction with limited time and limited training. And I know I've been on record saying it before. I think we did a very good job here. There's no doubt about that. We did excellent work, really tried to engage kids and really work with our faculty and staff to be as prepared as we could be for the remote situation. Now that we've had time to reflect and to think about how we can enhance and improve teaching and learning in a remote setting, that is certainly something that will be the focus of some professional development this year. So that is an area where we will continue to look to improve. Communication was an issue that came across. We heard loud and clear. Parents have had no choice. They become significant partners in the learning process when we're talking about any type of remote experience. And parents are at home working with their kids. Some of the feedback we heard was, if I have 3 different kids at 3 different grade levels in my house, I can go to the website to get started, but then I'm being launched all over the place into different places, and there's different usernames and passwords, and keeping everybody organized and managed was challenging. And so, when kids are in school and they're working with their teachers or at a particular grade level, there's, usually certain systems and things that are in place. And it's a little easier for the kids to manage because teachers at school are really helping manage that. But we needed to improve that. And I'm going to talk to you in just a minute about the learning management system. It's something new that we will be implementing for the start of the school year. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then, as Mike has said, social, emotional wellness, and mental health. We know that that's a priority in our reopening plan. That's been indicated by the state education department that we need to make that a priority. I think the board is well aware we've invested a lot of time and effort and energy over the last couple of years. We're really proud of the work that we've started there, and we recognize the benefit that foundation will provide as students begin the transition back to in-person learning. But that doesn't mean our learning is done there. We still have more work that we need to do. We'll continue to learn and grow to make sure that we are making social, emotional wellness and mental health a priority for our students, faculty, and staff. So I want to just, before I jump into the PD leader or to the learning management system, I wanted to make you aware of the PD leader program. So as Mike mentioned, we are leveraging the knowledge of our faculty and staff. We do have outstanding educators. As Mike said, we have some that travel around the country and present on things that they do within the classroom. And even those teachers that don't travel, we've got a lot of outstanding teachers who have taken on different practices that we can leverage the expertise amongst our own teachers to really help bring all of our colleagues along and learn in this new environment. And so we currently are offering virtual sessions of the PD Leader program that range on a variety of topics, really focused primarily on improving remote instruction and professional practice. We currently have 14 professional development offerings provided by 8 different faculty members. And those topics range from things like book studies to virtual grading and assessment, leveraging Google Apps for education to make the most of online resources. We've got a wide variety of topics that our teachers are sharing with one another to help improve practice in a remote and learning environment. For instance, the book study, the Distance Learning Playbook is a pretty common book that is out there now. It was developed when remote learning became common for schools across the country. So all of our teachers have a copy of the virtual or the Distance Learning Playbook. We'll be doing a book study on that to really kind of take a deep dive and look at best practices in remote learning. Many of you know, if you took part in sessions in July, The administrative team, we use Nearpod all the time. Our teacher, Ed Finney, is a certified Nearpod trainer. He goes around, does trainings for Nearpod at different conferences. Mr. Finney will be working with his colleagues on that. So we've got, as I said, 14 different offerings, and we'd like to recognize and acknowledge and thank our teachers who are using their summer time to help one another and improve their practice in a remote learning environment. I want to take a minute and make sure the board is aware, and any members of our community that are online. We've talked about through the month of July, when it came to improving communication, we talked a little bit about learning management system. So you're gonna hear, if you Google learning management systems or LMS, there are a ton of different platforms that are out there. Some of you that are in the college setting might remember Blackboard. Blackboard is a learning management system. We actually use Google Classroom, which is a free learning management system, but it's limited in its capability. And so we started to take a look at this back in July, and we brought some teachers in. We looked at a couple of different learning management systems. We wanted to make sure members of the faculty, both at the elementary school and the high school, had an opportunity to take a look at a couple of different learning management systems and consider possible adoption for the upcoming school year. And when you see this quote on the page here, when you think of a learning management system, think of it think of that LMS as your virtual classroom where you can create, store, share, and communicate. And so a learning management system has the ability to create a common look and feel and platform for all of our students, K-12. So if I am the parent of a kindergartner, a middle schooler, and a high schooler, the look and feel is the same regardless of where I go. There are enhanced features in a learning management system that will let us, all the teachers of a student can provide assignments through the learning management system, which shows up on a calendar for that student, so the student can see all their assignments and their due dates. Teachers can provide feedback on assignments right through the learning management system. They can provide an update in grades through the click of a button. They can easily communicate back and forth with students or parents at home. It's a pretty robust tool that we recognize will help solve many of the issues that came up in the survey. And once we started to take a look at that feedback, the more we discussed how to solve the learning management system came into focus. So there is a hyperlink in the slide here for Canvas. We have chosen Canvas as the platform that we will move forward with. We are working with NARIC. It is a BOCES aidable service, so obviously we have to pay for the learning management system up front, but we will receive aid back on that next year. And it will support blended learning and enhances communication. And I think we're going to find ourselves, we know we're starting the year in a blended learning environment, right? We're going to be partly online, we're going to be partly in person for kids in grades 4 through 6. Those students in kindergarten through grade 3 will also be utilizing this system, and we're going to have some requirements across the board that everybody has expectations for utilizing the learning management system, because as we know, we need to be ready, virtually overnight to be able to switch to in-person teaching and learning to potentially a remote environment. So what I will share too is there are benefits post-pandemic. So this isn't just a quick reactionary, okay, we have to do it. It really accelerated some conversation. We have been talking about a learning management system amongst the leadership team for quite some time. I remember going through a process when Bob Horan was the superintendent and looking at learning management systems. We kept landing, we continued to come back to Google because of its ability to, it's free. and our ability to leverage that. So Google actually integrates right into Canvas. So teachers will still have the ability to kind of learn and continue to utilize the tools that they're comfortable and familiar with. This is just like a virtual classroom where everything can be and folks can go and get information. So I think we're going to be very pleased with the system when it's up and running. But as you can imagine, there's a little bit of angst at the moment with implementing a brand new learning management system when we're coming back to school in person for the first time in 6 months. And we've got all sorts of new requirements. And so as you heard Mike talk about that 6 hours of professional development time, we're working with Faculty Association now to, we're engaged in some discussions about the possibilities of looking at pulling that time out of those Mondays that were designed to be in between sports seasons. We were going to do hour-long PD sessions for 3 Mondays in between sports seasons. And we're going to look to potentially try to leverage that 6 hours of time before school starts to put everybody through. Canvas uses its system and offers online modules for how to use Canvas. And so, you know, we're in discussion of trying to get that worked out where our teachers would have that training prior to coming back to school. It's obviously going to take some time for them to learn. Now is a good time for them to learn, but we are in the process of getting our district page and all the data transfer and setup is in process. That never happens as quickly as we want it to, but that is where we are at with professional development, and we recognize that much of the year will be spent on improving professional practice in our new environment and making sure everybody is staying safe and healthy. So let me wrap that up there. I'll stop chatting for a minute and see if we might be able to answer any questions for anybody.
Thank you, Mike and Jason. Any questions from the board on the PD plan? I think we're good.
Okay,
Thank you very much. For the board, for this evening, again, just if there's a question, just I think you can unmute yourselves. That'll let me know. All right, at this time, we're going to move into public comment. So good evening to the public. I believe *3 will raise your hand. So if there's anyone out there who has a comment that they would like to make, please press *3 on your phone, and I will call on you. I do not see a hand raising. All right, I'm going to assume there's no comments from the public. At this time, I'm going to go ahead and close the first comment section and move into district updates. A couple of this evening. Tried to buy as much time as I could, Mr. Chevy, but you were on again.
I got a drink. That was good. I appreciate that. Thank you. All right, we do have a couple of items that we're going to talk to you about this evening. I'm going to share my screen with you, kind of a late addition to the board agenda. I put together just some talking points that I wanted to share with all of you this evening. Let me just share my screen with you here. And this is also in board docs, so you can pull it up and follow along in board docs if you'd like to. There's a reopening update. What I just wanted to do, I wanted to share a couple of things with the board, a couple of reminders as well. If you recall, back at the end of June, we started a process to really work with a a variety of stakeholders to put together a reopening task force. And we had 4 advisory committees, communications, instruction, operations, budget, and personnel. We had about 211 stakeholders represented on those 4 advisory committees. In addition, we had we put together a steering committee that was composed of approximately 46 stakeholders, and we had roughly 257 different stakeholders involved in our process for reopening. In addition to those committee meetings, and if you recall, the advisory committees, we had communications met every Monday at 4 o'clock through the month of July. Operations every Tuesday at 4 o'clock, instruction every Wednesday at 4, budget personnel every Thursday at 4, and then our steering committee met at 6 o'clock in the evening on Wednesdays. In addition to those meetings, we had 5 community town hall forums. You can see the information up on the screen. Our first meeting actually kicked off the reopening task force. We held a community forum. We invited members of our community and the variety of stakeholders that were there, in addition to faculty and staff, to participate. And through that committee kickoff meeting, that town hall forum, we were able to gather many of our stakeholders that took part in the advisory committees and steering committees. So that meeting, you can see, that the WebEx gives us some good attendance data and duration of the meeting. So you can see July 29th, we had almost 200 attendees. July 20th, we held our second community town hall forum. We had 239 individuals attend. August 10th and 17th were originally planned way back at the beginning of June. We held meetings on the 10th and the 17th, and again, you can see the number of attendees. We held a meeting August 18th. We added that additional meeting on August 18th, and obviously having a meeting on the 17th and the 18th, we didn't expect to have another 200 people attend, and that was our lowest attended of the 5 community town hall forums. The reason that you see those outlined in blue, the governor came out, I believe it was on August 7th, and said between the date that the governor spoke and tomorrow, the 21st, you are required to have 3 meetings with your community and 1 district-wide faculty meeting. Got to talk to your community and you got to talk to your teachers. I should have sent the governor our outline and plan for the month of July, so he would have known that we were communicating with our community and teachers all along. But we did throw in that extra meeting on August 18th, and those are highlighted in blue to show that we were in compliance with the governor's directive of meeting 3 times with our community virtually. August 18th, we also held our district-wide faculty and staff meeting as directed by the governor. We invited all of our employees to attend that faculty and staff meeting. And as you can see, we met for just shy of an hour and a half and had 175 participants in that meeting. So all those meetings went very well. I will tell you the feedback from the meetings has been, for the most part, very positive. We have collectively worked as a team where people can drop questions into the chat window. Our group of panelists as principals and district leaders, we are responding to questions in writing and addressing some of those questions that the public may have in those forums. And for the most part, it has been very well received, and we have received a lot of positive feedback from our community. Does give folks an opportunity to, share their concerns. And as a result, we've received several follow-up emails. I just, I need a little more information about something, or I'm concerned about something you said. Can you clarify for me? And we have been working diligently to try to respond to questions that have come in quickly. So A lot of community engagement throughout the summer, quite a few stakeholders involved, a lot of meetings and a lot of time, but I will tell you, it seems very worthwhile, and the investment in time, I think, is appreciated by our community, and it has really created a transparent process for us. So we're very pleased with that. Again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. The board is well aware of our plans for instruction. Sitting here today, we are moving forward as discussed. We are given the green light to be in person, and we are going to move forward with all of our K-3 students coming in person. Grades 4 through 12 will be in a hybrid setting. Yesterday, all of our students should have received which days of the week they will be attending in-person instruction. I know that was a hot topic on social media yesterday, as kids do what they usually do when class lists come out and assignments. They want to know if they're going to be in with their friends, what days of the week folks are showing up. And so we were very pleased to be able to get that information out. I know parents are desperately waiting on specifics so that they can plan appropriately for their own work schedule and scheduling at home. I will go out and say again, I will go on record of saying we want all of our students K-12 in person 5 days a week. That's what we would love to see happen. Certainly it would give us all a little bit of our lives back. We would love to have that and be able to provide in-person learning to everybody. But we feel like things are really starting to come together for us in terms of being ready for in-person instruction. We do know that we have the optional remote only. We're going to talk to the board in just a minute. I'm going to let the principals come on and just give you a little bit of an update as to where they're at, how many kids in the elementary school have chosen that option, and what that potentially looks like for them. And we've talked a little bit about that. But we'll give you a sense of numbers in just a moment. Again, 7-12, we will be on that AB schedule. Students will attend either Monday and Thursday or Tuesday and Friday, and we'll be fully remote on Wednesday. And to be clear, all of those remote days are attendance-driven instructional days for students. And so we will be engaging students in a variety of ways on those remote days. And so that's an important thing to remember. It is not I'm in school 2 days and then I'm off for 3 days, or I've got to do remote on the days that I'm not in person, but that Wednesday is an off day. That is not true at all. They are all instructional days, and parents, as we get a little bit closer to the start of school, we're still finalizing details, and we will be able to give folks a very clear picture of what that will look like. Just so you can kind of get a sense of some of the things that are still working on, we're still working on. So the logistical planning, we have to operationalize all the aspects of our plan. And I know I've used that term before, but it's important to just consider the domino effect of everything that is going on here. And the significance of having good data to make decisions becomes extremely important. So as the board knows, we put out a survey asking all of our families to select an instructional model. Do I want to be optionally remote? Do I want to come to the hybrid in-person schooling? Do I need transportation in the morning? Do I need transportation in the afternoon? That data becomes critical for our planning, and the maximum participation we can get in that survey really kind of helps us be able to plan effectively. And so I will tell you, we had about 500 responses to the survey, which we know does not encompass and capture all of our kids. So since that survey has closed, we have Angie Bieber out of Mike's office has been spending a lot of time. We're calling families, we're sending emails to folks that have not responded, and we're really trying to gather what choices they want to make. That is essential in our planning. It'll make a difference on cohort sizes in classrooms. It'll make a difference on bus routes. You know, a few additions either way can really kind of swing how many sections we need, or can really swing, you know, do we need to really change the routing to put more students on a bus? So we're working hard, but our principals, if you guys, Jackie and James, can you guys just hop on real quick and just talk a little bit about where you're at with your numbers for remote and in-person instruction?
Jackie, you want to go first?
I figured you were since you unmuted so quickly, but I don't mind. We have right now 49 students that are going full remote. So that's about 12% of our student population. It really varies greatly. Like we have 4 12th graders going remote, but we have 12 8th graders going remote. So that's our highest and our lowest in grade levels, but about 49 students, 12% of our population.
Thanks, Jackie. James?
A little bit more at the elementary school. We have just under 500 students enrolled. That's, I think, 484. And we have about 73 kids that opted for the remote learning. So it's about 18%. It's fairly well spread out across each grade level. We do have a couple grade levels with 14, and our lowest grade level is 7 as far as remote instruction goes. So.
Okay. Thank you. We appreciate that. And, you know, I share that with the board now, just recognizing that as folks are getting messages and responding back, that information is kind of changing by the day, but it does give you kind of a sense of where we're at and how families have selected. And, you know, it makes us feel good that we offered that optional remote learning option for families. There's, you know, quite a few families who felt that that was the best option for them. And we hope that they appreciate having the opportunity to still stay connected to the school district and, you know, work with us on, you know, providing that remote option to them. So more information to come on that. I'm just going to touch on a couple of these things. I'm not going to get in depth, but scheduling is still being finalized. We are working diligently. You know, as mentioned, students did receive their day notice for in-person instruction, finalizing bell schedules. Once those bell schedules are finalized, we'll really be able to start to communicate to families what drop-off time will look like, pickup time. We are looking at, we're talking about some shifts in that time. We recognize that the pickup and drop-off each day has got to be much more controlled, and it's just going to take longer. So we have to be able to, once we, and we recognize we can't have full buses like we used to have. So when we have a bus that potentially is at half capacity, which would then be our full capacity for that particular bus, picks up for high school students and goes and drops off. There's a level of cleaning that needs to take place before that bus can go back out and start picking up elementary school students. So there is a time issue where before we could just drop off and the buses could go right out and start picking up for the next route. We can't do that anymore. We do have to clean in between. We recognize that anybody dropping off or picking up for school, we have to do in a much more controlled environment as well. We do need to know upon drop-off, students have been screened at home. So we have to control the drop-off environment as cars are rolling into the loop. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. But, you know, we recognizing that there are going to be some changes here to some of those things, we have had to we're working with teachers now and having some conversation about start and end times to the day and what the bell schedules during the day will potentially look like. So stay tuned. As soon as that gets finalized, we will certainly let everybody know. We know that that makes a huge difference for parents prepping in the morning and being able to get their kids to school. We just recognize we have some new challenges. We're trying to figure out how to provide meaningful instruction throughout the day and not lose a significant amount of in-person time to logistical things like getting kids in the building and getting kids out of the building at the end of the day. So drop off and pick up procedures are still being worked on. Our screening instrument, we are finalizing the setup of that, where hopefully families will be getting an email or a text message every morning reminding them to go on and complete the COVID screening for their child or their children at home. It's our hope that the system that we'll be using for that, if parents put an app on their phone, they can do the screening. And then it will also create a geofence at school. So we'll be able to see how I took the screening. I am okay to be in school. We can see that on the app. We can see you pull in and that you have passed the screening, and we can quickly get you out of your car and into the house with limited interruption, where we're not searching through a spreadsheet to try to confirm that you have passed that screening at home. For those families that forget to do the screening, we will need to screen a child before the parent lets them go for work in the event they are not allowed to be in school that day, that their parents would be then required to keep them in the vehicle and take them home. So we're working on all of those procedures. And again, I know I'm talking about this in very general terms. We will be sure to educate our community prior to the first day of school. And, you know, we've got a couple of creative ways we're looking at doing that. We'll get to that in just a minute as well. Rhonda and Kathy are working tremendously hard on transportation routing. What they usually have the summer to work on, they've been given just a few short weeks to try to put together routes, and that information continues to change, as I mentioned, depending on how that survey data comes in. We're looking at technology deployment, making sure devices and internet is appropriate for folks. And as we get a little closer to school, we'll be connecting with families to make sure those that have indicated they have technology issues have the tech that they need in order to be able to function in a remote setting. We are encouraging any parents that do have devices at home that kids can utilize. If you have one at home, we certainly appreciate the help and support with that. If it's a necessity that the district offers a device or is a device is needed, we will work with families to make sure that one is provided. Currently, we're pulling out furniture and storage, continue cleaning the environment, but we have a lot of furniture that has to go into storage. We've needed to make room in our classrooms to maximize the space so that we can be socially distant with desks and chairs. So the environments are kind of looking a little stark. I won't lie to you about that. Looks like a very different environment when you come in, not quite what we're used to seeing when we come into the school setting. But a lot of that furniture is being moved, and our custodial crew is working tremendously hard. We've got a lot of fresh paint that has gone up at the elementary school. It looks great down there. We continue to do work in the area of facilities. Signage and floor stickers. We received, our order came in the other day for our socially distant reminders and floor vinyl decals. Signage for the door, requiring individuals to wear masks. So you'll see those things start to go up over the next week or two as we prepare for the opening of school. In addition, we've got nurse coordination training that's taking place. We're working with our nurses. They all need to be N95 fit tested for N95 masks, and we're working with our nurses in the county to make sure, and NEDM risk management, to make sure that our nurses have all the training and PPE and supplies that they need. We've met with them a couple of times, really working through logistics of what happens throughout the course of the day and how we retrain faculty and staff how to utilize our nurses. Really, we can't, and we're going to be discouraged from just sending kids down to the nurse. We've got to coordinate that effort a little bit more through phone calls and touching base before we just start sending kids down to the nurse's office for any ailment or of course in an emergency. That's what we do. We get the nurse or get the student down there, but for typical things, we want to just be mindful. So we've got some retraining we need to do there as well. We can't forget about our substitutes. That includes any substitutes that we have in our nurse's office. We will need to be providing training to all of our substitutes. And we want to make sure that our nurse subs are trained appropriately as well. In the event that one of our nurses gets sick or is out of the building, we do have a few RNs that are on our substitute list that have helped us out in the past. We want to make sure that they're fit tested and understand protocols and procedures under our new environment as well. In addition, we'll have regular substitutes that we will need to provide instruction to in the event that any of our teachers are out and substitutes come in to provide coverage. They need to be trained to protect themselves and understand how to keep students and themselves safe in our school environment. So we have work to do there. Again, we're finalizing staff and employee accommodations. That is a process we continue to compile that information and work to make sure that we are meeting the needs of our employees. That is not finalized yet. We're continuing work in that area. In addition, we are looking at training and conference day planning for the upcoming conference days and developing our schedules there. Communication through our learning management system. And I'm going to end finally on a good note. If you have not had the chance to do so yet, you should take the time to watch the public service announcements, the 2 videos that were made by Miss Hill at the high school, Mr. Derby and Miss Rocher put one out today. Those are a compilation of what we're calling public service announcements about the new way of doing business. Brian Radowitz, our communication specialist, has been videotaping and putting together these segments that he is blasting out through social media. It's a way to try to engage kids in our communities, welcome them back to school, and help educate them on some of the things we're going to need to be mindful of. And we're going to hold on to those videos and put them up on our website, use them throughout the year, retweet those things just as reminders for some of the training to come. So some of these other things that we're talking about, we envision making up videos that you can watch while you're eating your breakfast in the morning. We can build a resource bank on our website. So if parents want to know what the, for instance, the drop-off procedure is, or how I go about screening and what's the app that I use, our hope is to make video of all of those different things. Have parents be able to go to the website and utilize and leverage that as a resource for those things. So as you can see, we've been busy. We are busy. And I want to take an opportunity now to just ask if any board members have any questions for me or any of the building principals on reopening, where we're at, anything we might be able to answer for you before we move on to the rest of the updates.
Looking to see if there's any hands up there.
Looks like Dan has a question. Yeah, Dan has one.
Hey, Jay, I don't really have a question as much as a comment. I just want to give you some feedback. The folks over in this neighborhood have been extremely pleased with the communication regarding moving forward. I mean, there's at least 15 to 20 kids in CS over here, and all the parents are very satisfied.
Appreciate hearing that. Thank you. We're working hard trying to keep people in the loop for sure. So thanks for that feedback. We hope to keep that going.
Other questions? I have just a couple. So the app, we've been talking about the app. Do you think that's going to be ready?
It's our hope. I will know more tomorrow. We have a meeting tomorrow with Pick My Kid is the name of the program. If you want to Google that, you can kind of take a look at what that looks like. But we have a meeting scheduled tomorrow morning for the high school. There's another meeting scheduled, a setup meeting. I've kind of given my team, we have a backup option in the event that Pick My Kid is not ready for the start of the year. We do have another electronic option that we can use that I am confident will be ready. But we want to get people started with the app of choice that we are going to use for that, because we know it ties in nicely to the pickup and drop off system and they talk to each other. So we'll know more tomorrow, but we've given what our community should expect. I've given my team essentially through the end of next week to really make sure that that's operational, because we need to communicate the week after that to families about what it's going to look like the week before school starts. So we're on pretty tight timelines, and our vendors know that, so they're working diligently with us to make it happen. But we should know for sure. We should have better indication tomorrow.
Transport, are we still at that 50% or roughly around 50% that's we need the transport? I think we thought maybe roughly we're bringing their kids to drop off.
Yeah, I don't have the exact numbers for you, and part of the reason is when we started calling, we're just logging information in on a spreadsheet now, where when you drop it into the survey, I have those pretty little pie charts that you could see, but we stopped dropping them into the survey and just adding them to the list. But I want to say, if I remember correctly, in the mornings, there was probably about 60 to 65% I'll bring my kids. The rest were, 35, 40% were district transportation was needed. And then in the afternoon, we're about 50-50. There's a greater need for transportation in the afternoon for sure than there is in the morning.
I got a question.
Go ahead, Dan.
Hey, Jace, do you think those numbers might change a little bit when parents come to the conclusion it might take more time to get them in school if they drive them there themselves versus take the bus?
Yeah, we anticipate that there's probably going to be, and again, our hope is with the software that we're utilizing that we can make that process efficient. And we're going to also take a look. We might need a couple of different routes. For instance, we might have to coordinate a couple of different drop-off areas to kind of make it a little more efficient for folks to get in and out. We recognize that nobody wants to sit in a line for 20 minutes waiting to drop their kids off to school, and that's going to make a big difference in getting to work. I'm gonna ask for some forgiveness the first week or so, as we are, we just always on the first week of school, everything always takes longer than it does anyway. We've got to just get used to new routines. I would ask parents to kind of stick with that, because again, we will work with parents to try to accommodate district transportation if they need to make the switch. But if I have a full route, I might have to reroute 2 new buses to try to figure out how to accommodate that request. That might take some time. We will work our best to do that. But ideally, Dan, what we want to do is make that process as efficient as it can be, and speed it along to get everybody off and running at the beginning of the day, and to maximize time we have with kids during the school day anyway. So there's always a good chance. We have asked so many what if questions that I think we've asked almost all the what if questions we could ask, but we certainly understand that that's a significant consideration to pay attention to. So we're going to do our best to not discourage parents from dropping off because it takes so long. We're going to try to make that happen quickly.
Okay.
This is Mary.
Yes, Mary.
The Pick My Kid is for the screening in the morning and checking into school.
That's correct. Yep.
Okay.
It actually was designed for a tool to use to create efficiencies in your pickup and drop off. That was its initial intent. And then they adapted the COVID screening questions into their program so that they work in conjunction with one another. Great way to get business under the circumstances, but we see the efficiency in doing both. We do, as mentioned, we do have a backup that would allow us to, in real time, as the report is updated, to be able to get a list of students. But this one kind of works a little bit more in tandem with who's pulling into your lot and quickly being able to get students out of vehicles and into the building. So we see the benefit with Pick My Kid over the other one, but we do have a backup just in case.
Yeah. And that's just because you've got 2 programs you're talking about and keeping them separate, and they don't work together. They're 2 different things. So because you're talking about learning management as opposed to the Pick My Kid. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I think that's it on the reopening plan. So sounds good. I like the communication. I like the videos that you're putting out. It's certainly helpful. Good thinking.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Brian to jump on. We've got just a couple of more quick things that we'll update you on. Brian's got a piece on the federal funds policy manual. He just wants to give you an update on that. And then we've got some fun conversation to have with you regarding state aid reductions. So Brian, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chevier. For the board, for the public, you'll find in your packets tonight a copy of our federal funds procedural manual. This has gone through the audit committee. It's basically a roadmap of how we deal with and interact with federal funds and who within the larger community of the school district deals with those funds and how they deal with them. So it's a newly created document for us. We borrowed it from ASBO. They put it together with different CPAs. Our CPA actually, it was on the team that created it, and you utilize it to adapt to your own environment, which we've done. Again, it's a roadmap of how we interact and utilize and work with federal funds that we get through the different grants received. Okay, any questions on that? Okay, on to state aid cuts. So this week we saw within the school system the first state aid cuts, and it hit the news. As anybody that's been watching the news in the last few days, basically what the governor has done in June and July is withheld $324 million of aid that was supposed to be given to school districts. There is conversation right now dealing with Washington and a stimulus package that, as we talked about previously, right, we were waiting on the stimulus package to see if the cuts were going to come to the aid, and in fact, it hasn't come yet, so the cuts have started. The challenging pieces originally talked about was foundation aid cuts. This has now moved into all aid cuts. So previously we thought we were looking at a $1.2 million cut. We now are looking at a projected $1.9 million cut if this continues. In the newspapers and online through the different advocacy groups, you will see that it has not been said that this is a permanent cut or if it will be restored, but it is being tied to, again, the stimulus package that's in Washington and the election. So we will be starting to gear up with that $1.9 million number to deal with that if this in fact comes to fruition for the rest of the year. We have a plan in place, as you know, for the 1.2 million. This adds about another $730,000 that we'll have to deal with. We started to look at as we talked about before, we started to look at every position that is either retirement or has moved on and what we do with those positions. We have not filled those as of now. That includes our assistant principal at the high school. As you know, Mike has moved to deal with that loss. We had a retirement down at CES of one of our clerical staff. We jockeyed clerical staff down to that position, did not fill. So we'll continue to make that roadmap, and as it becomes more clear to Jason and I and the admin team, we'll let the board see that plan. We know that we have some fund balance that we pushed over from last year. We know that we have reserves for the rainy days. It's pouring at this point. But we also know that those are one-time infusions of cash, much like our savings accounts. If we can't refill what we use, it's not there next time. So that's the latest and greatest on the aid cuts.
Yeah. I will tell you, just to chime in, I appreciate that perspective, Brian. My colleagues, as you know, I meet with the other superintendents from across our BOCES 3 times a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And when that news came out, it really is like a kick in the pants. We're working so hard to try to get our schools open. We recognize that schools have unplanned for expenses, new costs to doing business, PPE, signage, software platforms. There's all sorts of things we need to do to improve the quality of the instruction that we do that come with a cost. As Brian mentioned, we're trying to be diligent in positions. As you know, I think we had a very solid plan that balanced the use of reserves and fund balance, and looked at some reductions in expense to get us to that $1.2 million number. Another $700,000 is pretty hefty order, folks. That's tall order and just under the environment in which we're currently working in. So right now they are looking at a 20% reduction in aid by district. So what they've done in the past is they've said, we're going to take back 20%, but really some of our poorest schools and most needy schools, haven't been impacted as much as some of the schools that are a little more wealthy and that don't have as high a need. That isn't the case now. You're going to see schools like city school districts of Albany and Troy that are looking at, potential, $4 to $5 million reductions in their budgets this year. Ours is 1.9 million in a $26 million budget. It's pretty significant. Again, I don't want to preach that the sky is falling, but we've got to really pay close attention to what's happening here, and really wait and see what happens with that stimulus money. Again, we're working diligently to staff program to do all the things that we need to do. We're only filling and posting for positions that we know we need. So, some we need. We've got operator programs, so we got to post for those positions. But if we're able to shuffle, take on additional work and additional responsibilities, much like we did when we reshuffled the admin team and reorganized that, same amount of work exists, and we have one less person to take that on. And so, we understand the environment, so we're doing that. Same with the clerical staff. So we'll continue to do that and to be very mindful of spending, but we have to spend some money because we've got kids coming in the door here in a couple of weeks, and but we're trying to be very diligent and mindful of where we're going. But not great news, and I think Brian and I will continue to keep the board updated. Look for information coming from your group, from NISBA. Pay attention to that stuff when it comes out. It's going to be a rough road. They're not projecting positive revenues back in New York State until like 23, 24. So, sitting here at 2021, recognizing 23, 24, looks like it's, it's a long ways down the road. So we could be in store for a couple of really rocky, difficult, challenging years here. So hopefully we get some help and support, but it's good that we'll keep you informed and engaged in this conversation. We'll start working on a plan. Thoughts or questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Are we receiving any aid for like gathering PPE and related supplies?
So it's not aid from the state. It's going to be a FEMA plan that we make, determine it fits into their categories. So what we're doing right now is inventorying and cataloging everything that we spend COVID related, everything from floor wax to PPE to hours that we've spent working towards COVID or COVID related. Then there's a team from the federal government that comes in and basically says yes or no to what our list is. They've already said no to some things that we can't get reimbursed for. So we'll continue to do that out of the business office, and ultimately we'll claim anything we can through the federal government. That will have a date that stops. That project, they call it a project number. That project will stop at some point, and then we'll be on our own for the additional cost. They won't pay for technology. They won't pay for things that aren't directly preventing COVID from spreading. We all can argue that. I would say if you're at home, not in a school environment, or you're forced to be home, not in a school environment, we're not spreading COVID. But they don't buy that. They're very stringent and very strict rules. So we're going to, again, continue to catalog every expense and put in to try to get as much as we can from that source of income.
Now, the governor has also come right out and said, we know you're going to have expenses and we're not going to reimburse you for expenses.
Yeah.
You're going to have some things you're going to have to pay for. And likely you're not going to get reimbursed from the state in that either. So if there is any mechanism or avenue for submitting for reimbursement, either through the state or federal government, we will certainly take full advantage of that. But it's not looking like we're going to get reimbursed for a ton.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from the board? All right, I guess we'll just hold our breath on that one. Is that end? Any,
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. That's it. Yep, sorry. Thank you.
that's good. All right, section 5 is action items and follow-ups. We just have 2 of them that we're holding on to, so we'll revisit the athletic code of conduct. Probably at the
Mr. Tuttle?
second meeting.
Ms. Hill is kind of ready to get rid of the first one on the list. Can you give her a moment to kind of follow up on that one with the board?
Sure.
Hi, everyone. So the 7th Planning Committee met and discussed some of the concerns that were brought up about students failing one class and maybe adding a little bit more to that section. So we met with committee members, and what we decided was to put in the plan the following statements. So for students failing one class at the time of an interim report or report card, they'll have to meet with both the athletic director and their coach to discuss a plan to improve their grade. Students will be placed in a structured study hall during their school day. And they'll be notified about the sports study hall that's available to them, but it would not be mandatory for them. And they're still eligible for practices and competitions. So we're hoping that that acknowledges that obviously we expect them not to be failing a course, but also give a little bit of leeway because some of the grades tend to change fairly rapidly. So it gives a little bit of leeway to them, but it acknowledges that they need to be working towards success in that course specifically. We also did add a section, which I know is going into our school code of conducts as well, just regarding the COVID and remote learning, that says that student athletes will comply with the district expectations or the direction of teachers, principals, and other school personnel regarding the health and safety of students, including but not limited to expectations and requirements of the district, New York State Ed Department, and the Department of Health during health emergencies. So we wanted to make sure that was consistent in both codes of conduct. And so we're hoping that that kind of answers some of the questions that had come up before. I know Mr. Heiser isn't on here, and he was the one who brought it up, but the committee has now met multiple times about that. So if anyone has any questions, let us know and we can revisit on our end.
Mary, do you have something? Mary?
Yeah.
Did you have something? I saw your hand is up.
Oh, it was before though. So
Before this conversation, you had something?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's been up for a little while. I'll take it down.
I'm sorry. I just saw it.
Uh-huh.
Jackie, just one point of clarity. You said something about placed in study hall, but then notified of a sports study hall.
Right. So really, this is done anyway. Our students that are in study hall during their school day, if they're failing a class, whether they're an athlete or not, they're placed in a structured study hall. So typically our study halls are more lenient, sometimes in the cafeteria for our students, but as a consequence of failing, we place them in a more structured environment. So we put that in the plan so that it was clear that that's an outcome. It won't affect every single student if they don't have study hall, if they take additional electives or courses and don't have room for a study hall, it doesn't impact them, but others it does. And then the study hall after school is for our athletes failing 2 or more classes, but it's open for our students who might want some more structure before their practices.
Okay, thank you. I think that's in line with what Mike was talking about, so I think we're good there. Mr. Chevier?
It just seems appropriate. I forgot to mention while we're talking about the athletic code of conduct, just so the board is aware, the governor did announce this week that next week he'll be coming out with an announcement about interscholastic athletics. So there should be an announcement coming next week in direction from New York State about whether kids will be allowed to participate in sports or not, and what the guidance might be along with that. So we'll keep you posted. We don't know. As of right now, it's not allowed, and it's pushed off until September 21st. Forms are starting to come in. Kids are anticipating a September 21st start date, but we are waiting on direction from the governor, which we'll get next week. And then we'll probably have to rework every single plan that we've done for transportation and scheduling. So we'll wait and see what happens.
All right. Brian?
So can we just add one piece to this section? We still have to have the tax warrant signed when we're in person. I'd just like to add it here from the vote that was done. We have the proposition passed, which we've been using, but we do need that physically signed for the folks that attended that night. So we can do that. I just want to make sure we put it on the list to do.
So we need to stop into the district office and sign that document?
We can wait until we're all together, since it's going to be in two or 3 weeks. It's working now with the actual affidavit from Shelley, who notarized it.
Okay. All right. So for board members that are on, if you are going to be at the in-person September 10th board meeting, then I think you're okay. You can sign then. If you know you're not going to be at that board meeting, then you need to stop into the district office and sign that document. That sound right?
Yep.
Okay. All right. The only other thing on to the action items is the advisory committee, which we pushed off till December. Next section is board discussion. Is there any topics of discussion from the board?
I just wanted to ask Brian one more question. We moved on too quick.
Sorry,
The tax warrant that's been signed, how many signatures do you have?
We don't have any right now, Mary. We need everybody that was at that vote who voted.
I signed it.
I'm sorry, then we have one.
Okay.
Apologize.
Okay.
It's all blending at this point.
Okay.
It's all good. So it applies to most of us then. Any other topics for board discussion? I didn't see anybody's hand go up. All right. So my only topic was the next meeting. So September 10th, which was the first day of school. We have a meeting that evening. I will get with Jason and Shelley, and we will get it ourselves set up so that we can have an in-person meeting. I'll come out with further details on that. If you will not be at that meeting in person and will be attending virtually, please just let me know. That way we know how to set the place up. But again, I'll come out with an email on that. All right, next section is section 6, policies. So we do have I don't know, maybe 8 or 9 policies, maybe more, that are out there for first reading. So can I get a motion to approve those policies for first reading?
So moved.
Thank you, Chuck. Wait a second. Second from Dan, thank you. So all those in favor of moving these policies, say aye.
I just have one question really quick.
That's my fault. Are there any questions on any of the policies?
So in policy 5100, I think that's school absences. At the bottom of page 1, under excused and unexcused absences, the first sentence reads, excused ATEDs are defined as absences, tardiness, and early departures from class or school. I think we may just need to add a phrase to the end of that, something along the lines of, for which a valid reason is provided in accordance with the policy. Otherwise, there's nothing that differentiates an unexcused ATED from anything else.
Good point, Kyle.
We'll take a look at that, and if the board is agreeable, we'll take a look and add that in for second reading.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Ben.
So on the one that has to speak about hiring coaches, in the past, we had a past issue where we had to give preference to a teacher that had the qualifications as opposed to someone who had been in the position but was not a district employee. So here we're changing that. Meaning that if it says once a person has been appointed to a coaching position for a particular sport, they will be given preferential consideration for reappointment to that sport over any new applicant. But what made that change?
So when you look at coaching policy and the previous guidelines that we followed for that, anytime there is opening, there's clear preference. That goes to certified PE teacher, certified teacher. There's a clear protocol for how that pecking order should be followed. And so through some discussion with that, what we have to recognize is some of our coaches that come to us that are not members of our teaching staff, that become parts of our school community. Potentially, we have retired teachers that are no longer part of our teaching staff that have been coaches for a long period of time. It provides the athletic director the ability to review performance evaluations to make sure that those individuals are doing quality, satisfactory work for our students, and kind of protects their dedication to working with our kids in our school. So, for instance, if we looked at Coach Gillespie, who I know is a retired teacher, but certainly doesn't fit any of those categories now. If we had a member of the teaching staff that wanted to coach varsity soccer, in theory, we would have to give strong consideration to that. We want to give the athletic director the ability to, once we find good coaches, and we're dealing with those folks, that they're given consideration and not just excused because we have a member internally who might decide that they want to do it now. So that change has been put in there to just provide the athletic director the leeway to be able to preserve some of the good things that happen in terms of our athletic coaching staff.
We talked about that before, I believe.
Hey, Jace, is there anything in the state education regulations that would supersede our decision?
There's guidelines that are provided that we would, anytime a position is open, we follow those guidelines. And as long as, if we hire somebody who is not a faculty member, is a member of our community, as long as they get the appropriate coaching credentials and they become a certified coach, they meet the criteria and the qualifications to continue in that role. So, it's a couple of different things we're looking at here. When you have an initial opening, we make it very clear. There's a protocol for how you go through that. But at the same time, we have individuals that, have dedicated years or potentially want to build programs that also, if we just have somebody who comes in and says, okay, I want the job and I'm higher in that order than you are, so I should get it. I think, what we're trying to do is look at preserving and protecting some of that quality that's built around our athletic programs. So I don't see any issue with that at all, Dan. Upon initial hire, we follow all those guidelines. And then as long as a coach reaches the coaching credentials and gets everything and they become a certified coach, they can continue in that capacity.
Well, I appreciate the change, and I think a lot of people in the community will as well.
Yeah.
Mary, does that satisfy your question?
Well, it does, but it certainly directly conflicts with what we did in years past. So
I think it
all
was
of the
pretty
state guidance.
unclear. Yeah, I think it was pretty unclear in the past, which we're trying to clarify that to some degree now, so we don't end up in a situation similar to that. I think the clearer we spell that out, and again, you know, you might have an opportunity here with an athletic director who can look at the performance of their coaches and recognize that, you know, as we evaluate our coaches and their dedication and commitment to the program, you know, you want to give the athletic director the ability to, you know, not have to wonder each and every year if that situation arises, how to go about handling that. It gives, you know, gives some clear direction, which I think is important.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments on the policy section?
I did have the same question that Mike Heiser raised about the why not junior on the 2245, but you explained that. And the only other question I had was on 2520, and that's because it has edits in it in red, and I'm not sure that they belong there.
All right, we can take a look at the edits in red, Mary, on 2520. We can take a look at that. I'll get back to the board on why the edits are in red. I'm not prepared to speak to that now, so yeah, I'll have to just take a look at it and get back. I can't speak to that now. Hey, you got the answer to the question on student board member. That's actually in statute. That's state. That's law. The individual has to be a senior.
Yeah, and we messed up. So
yeah, it's all right. No, the state ed police didn't come and give us a smackdown, so we did, but we fixed it when we caught it. We got it.
Okay, other than the, we'll look at the, I believe it's just the formatting tracking that's on that document. So the 2520, once that's removed, the information is still the same. So barring any of that, are there any other comments or questions on the policies? Okay, so all in favor of moving the policies through first reading to second reading, please say aye. Mr. Charsky?
Aye.
Mrs. Gibson?
Aye.
Mr. Graninetti?
Aye.
Mr. Hersey?
Aye.
Mrs. Palmer?
Aye.
Mr. Peter?
Aye.
My vote is aye. And Mrs. Jurista?
aye.
Thank you very much. The next section is the finance section. We have A through C. So we have a resolution of transferring funds from the general fund to the retirement contribution reserve fund and the retirement. Yeah, why does it say and? Oh, I'm sorry, the ERS and the TRS. We also have a approval of surplus, and we have 2 contract leases, one with Ichabod Crane and one with Questa. So is there a motion to approve 7A through C?
So moved.
Thank you, Mary. Is there a second?
A second.
I don't know if that was Shelley or Sherry.
Sherry.
Sherry, thank you, Sherry. All right, any questions on A through C? Okay, I don't think there's any questions. All right, so all in favor of moving section 7, A through C? I can't tell if that's something.
Wait, are we moving or we're approving them?
Yes, we're approving the motion.
You said move. Just checking. Want to know what I'm voting on?
All right, so all those in favor of approving
There we go.
7A through C, please say aye. Mr. Charsky,
Aye.
Mrs. Gibson,
Aye.
Mr. Graninetti,
Aye.
Mr. Hersey,
Aye.
Mrs. Palmer,
Aye.
Mr. Peter.
Aye.
My vote is aye, and Mrs. Jurista.
Aye.
Thank you. So section 7A through C is passed. Next section is section 8, other action. We have approval of a resolution for suspending any district policy that conflicts with the legal directives and authorizes the superintendent to follow those directives. We have an approval of the revision of the code of conduct, which we just talked about a little bit earlier, about adding in the section to about the students for failing to comply. And we have an approval of the revised school calendar, which changes the opening day of school to September 10th. So do we have a motion to approve section 8 items A through C?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mary. Is there a second?
Second.
I can't tell who said what. Shelley, do you have it?
I was the second. Mary was the second. I don't know who did it first.
I think
Sharon?
I moved. Kyle.
Okay, so I got Kyle with the motion. I got Mary with the second. Are there any questions on section 8, A through C? Okay, there are no questions. All those in favor of approving section 8, A through C, please say aye. Mr. Trusty,
Aye.
Mrs. Gibson,
Aye.
Mr. Graninetti,
Aye.
Mr. Hersey,
Aye.
Mrs. Palmer,
Aye.
Mr. Peter.
Aye.
My vote is aye. Mrs. Jurista?
Aye.
Thank you. Section 8, A through C passes. Section 9 is approval of staffing actions. We have only a few this evening. I really thought it would open up by now. All right, so we have 2 resignations for teaching assistants, and we have the appointment of a substitute bus driver. Do we have a motion to approve section 9?
So moved.
Thank you.
I second. Sherry.
Thank you. Are there any questions on section 9, item A? Okay, I see no questions. All those in favor of approving section 9A, please say aye. Mr. Charsky,
Aye.
Mrs. Gibson,
Aye.
Mr. Graninetti,
Aye.
Mr. Hersey,
Aye.
Mrs. Palmer,
Aye.
Mr. Peter.
Aye.
My vote is aye, and Mrs. Jurista?
Aye.
Thank you. Section 9A passes. Okay, so at this time, we're going to move into our second public comment. I will open the floor to the public. If you would like to address the board, please press *3 on your phone, which will let me know, and I will call on you individually. I don't see anybody signaling. I do see a text from Mr. Ryan, though, so will the public be allowed in person at the next BOE meeting September 10th? No. We will broadcast it like we are doing it virtually for the public, but it will just be the board and the administration or whoever Mr. Chevier chooses to be there. And second question was, How to ask for time if on the computer. Oh, that's a good question. So my understanding, Mr. Ryan, and we've checked it to see if it works. Star three is supposed to put a hand up so I can see it, and then I would unmute you, and you would speak. I think we've tried it, and it works. And I don't see any hands up.
Mr. Ryan is trying to talk.
Yeah.
Star
put it-
3.
Oh, he is on the computer, and okay. We'll get this eventually. So, Mr. Ryan, I've unmuted you, so you should be good.
All right. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right. Sorry, I didn't dial in on my phone. Again, I just want to thank Jason and all the admin team for working as diligently as they have. We've been working with them as a union to try to get things together. Again, we're making adjustments. They're making adjustments. And again, hopefully the public will hear that we are, I won't say very far, but far ahead of a lot of other local districts, especially because I've been attending local president meetings, and I know Jason's been attending his superintendent meetings. And there's a lot of issues with schools around the areas, but kind of scarily, we're actually in pretty good shape for reopening. And again, we keep working as hard as we can to make sure it's going to be safe. And again, I think we're doing a good job. Again, we have nothing to compare it to, but we'll keep going as fast and as quick as we can to make things work. But again, it's going to be a lot of changes very quickly. And again, I hope the public understands that, you know, we're not mind readers. We can't see into the future. We don't know what it brings, but we're going to do the best we can, try to educate all the children and stay as safe as we can. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. I appreciate those comments. I know the board appreciates the fact that the administration and the SFA are working well together. I think we're all happy too that not that others aren't as where we are, but I'm glad that, you know, we're not the ones behind and we're at the front. So we appreciate that. Looking, I don't see any other hands. If you're on a computer, if you can just do what Mr. Ryan did and just put something in the chat that tells me you want on. All right, I'm gonna call it for the public comment. Then I think we are set. So we're gonna move out of public comment. Action items, Mr. Chevier, what do you got?
I've got tax warrant signatures, formatting of the 2520 policy. We'll double check that, take a look at that. And then I'm just, not that we need to throw it on action items, but I've got Board of Ed set up for September 10th. By the time we get to it, we'll need to be set up, so we don't need to add it, but I'm putting it on my list so we don't lose sight of it.
Very good.
One more item.
Oh, go ahead, Jill.
I think we need to add the comment that Mr. Hersey had said about 5100 as well.
Yeah, we're both on the same page.
Yeah, oh, I got that. I got it written down below. We'll add that as well. Sorry about that.
Anybody else have an action item we missed for next month? No, okay. I think that list captures it. And is there a motion to go into executive session from anyone? All right, seeing no motion for that, then I believe that concludes the meeting. Thank you, everyone. Good? Okay, we're good.
Thank you, everyone.
Mike, can you stop the recording?
Right now.